Okay, so I gave it away. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs in the 1970s, and I'm the youngest of five kids, but I always wanted to have a younger sibling, and mostly because I wanted to boss someone around like my older brother and sisters did to me. I needed someone to pass all that accumulating angst on to. Well, I never had a younger sibling, but the next best thing was having this whole little cadre of kids in my neighborhood who were younger than me. And they rang my doorbell a lot and always wanted me to come out and play with them. And throughout my grade school years, this was cool because I could be the big sister without the hassle of actually having to live with them all the time. And I'd make up games that mostly involved them having to do whatever I told them to do. I wasn't mean if you don't count the time that I locked two of them in my basement bathroom and turned out the lights. I know, but I only did it until they started to scream to be let out. I told you I had angst. Well, when I became a teenager, I started babysitting for some of these kids, and pretty soon that cured me of my wish to have younger siblings. I had more important things to occupy myself with, like getting my hair to do that perfect Dorothy Hamill feathered look and trying to be noticed by certain boys, or having to make the life altering decision about whether to shave my legs. My friends were doing it by the age of 12, but one of my big sisters warned me not to. She said that if I shaved, the hairs on my legs would grow thicker and darker, and it would plague me for the rest of my life. So these were serious things. I didn't have time for little kids. Now, some of my friends had little brothers and sisters, and they were an absolute pain. We were always telling them to shove off and leave us alone. And I started to understand how my big brother and sisters felt about me when I was younger. And when telling them these little kids to go away didn't work, we'd have to ditch them. So we'd ride off on our bikes and they'd be screaming behind us trying to catch up. But sometimes one of the mothers would make us look after these little annoying persons, which meant playing endless games of Go Fish instead of being able to listen to the latest Bob Seger album or talk about which boys we wanted to French kiss. So my own little neighborhood entourage of children seemed to worship me even more as I got older, and they never stopped ringing my doorbell. But by the time I reached the age of 14, I couldn't be seen hanging around with these kids. They were cramping my style. So I'd have to make up excuses why I couldn't come out and play with them every time they rang my bell. But then, they'd be standing there on the front stoop, staring up at me with these big, glistening, disappointed eyes. But when can you come out and play with us? You're our favorite teenager. And it was a trap, I knew, laid at my feet by these little masters of shaming. So sometimes I'd have to indulge them and I would play Red Rover with them, or we would build little miniature mountains, in their sandbox, or I would swing with them on their little swing sets that always came dangerously close to tipping over whenever I started gaining altitude. How could I get them to stop finding my company so fun? Then I came up with a brilliant idea. It was a game I called Let's Pick Up All the Litter in the Neighborhood. There was no way they were going to help me pick up cigarette butts and crumpled potato chip bags and pop cans that people were always tossing out their car windows on this busy road that we used to live on. These kids would be ditching me if I made them do that. So for the first time, I was like eagerly awaiting them. I was waiting for them to ring my doorbell. Hi, kids. I was just going out to pick up all the trash in the neighborhood, so maybe I'll see you later. And they were supposed to say, ew, and run off. Well, instead, they started jumping up and down. Oh, can we help? Can we help? Can we help? And I was thinking, okay, they need to feel the boredom of this. They need to feel how gross this is. So let's do this thing. They're not going to last long. So like the Pied Piper, I was leading them along the right of way by our road, and I was carrying the garbage bag, and they were darting from gum wrapper to cigarette butt to Coke can, and they would fight over who got to put, the trash in the bag. They were actually enjoying this. And when we pretty much found every piece of trash out there, I gave them some leftover Halloween candy, which was stale and disgusting. And the very next day, wouldn't you know, they rang my door again. Can you come out and pick up litter with us? And I was thinking, this isn't exactly turning out as I had planned. And there wasn't a whole lot to pick up anyways, because we had pretty much swept the streets clean the day before. So we tried the street behind us. And then a few days later, they were at my door again. Apparently, let's pick up all the litter in the neighborhood was now their new favorite game. And I was thinking, okay, so maybe the first time was fun because it was a novelty. The second time, well, it was still kind of new. But by the third time, surely they would start to get bored, especially since now we had the cleanest few streets in the town. There wasn't a whole lot to pick up. A few days after that, I was out in my front yard, and the next door neighbor lady came out. She was the mother of two of the kids, and she called me over to her yard. Now, Mrs. Samuels was somewhat of a helicopter parent, and she was a trophy wife, and she was married to this old rich guy. She was always dressed in the latest fashion. She was impeccable, and she was very, very picky about cleanliness and tidiness. And she was also conscientious about what her kids ate. There was no candy or junk food snacks in this lady's house. And I knew because I babysat for her kids, and not even scouring every top shelf of every cabinet in the kitchen after the kids went to bed turned up any forbidden candy or food. So Mrs. Samuels is in the front yard, and I walk over to her, and she says, I wanted to talk to you about this litter campaign of yours. And I felt this mix of fear and hope. Fear because even though she was petite, she was formidable. And hope because I thought for sure she was going to tell me to stop leading the neighborhood kids on this dirty and disgusting trash picking forays. But on the other hand, if Mrs. Samuels had said that the kids had to stop doing this, here was my perfect excuse for getting them off my back. Whenever they rang the bell, I would say, sorry, I'm picking up litter today and you're not allowed to come with me. And this meant my plan had actually worked in kind of a roundabout way, but it worked. So I'm standing there in the front yard, and I go up to her and I say, yes, Mrs. Samuels? This litter campaign you started with the neighborhood children. I just wanted to say how wonderful it is. What a great idea, showing the kids how to care for the earth and teaching them about responsibility. Thank you so much for doing this. Oh, and you can stop sending them home with Halloween candy. They'll do it for free. The Halloween candy just ends up in the trash anyways. We can't have them poisoning their bodies. So you see, in addition to being the perfectly dressed and coiffed model wife and mother, Mrs. Samuels was actually also an environmentalist, even before being one was fashionable. Yes, Mrs. Samuels, it's been fun picking up trash with the kids. Well, that's just great because I'll be volunteering the kids on a regular basis. It will be good for them. So that backfired big time, but did it. I was a budding environmentalist too, and I hated litter. And for a while there, our whole neighborhood was the tidiest in town. Now, one thing that hasn't changed since back in my day is that there's still a lot of litter around where I live now. Only now it's my husband who makes me get out of bed early on a Sunday morning in winter to help him pick up trash along our local trails. Well, what I wouldn't give to have a little kid knocking on my door and asking me to come out and play. Sorry, honey, I'd have to say to my husband, I've got a game of Red Rover I need to go to. Thank you.